Why women are the most affected by incels. Hello everybody, and welcome to One Mail. In this video, I want to discuss an issue that doesn't get discussed enough. It's something that is slowly creeping into our society and has the potential to cause some severe damage down the line. What am I talking about? Incels. Stay tuned in, like this video, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. This post on Reddit shows a survey graph with the following statement. From 2012 to 2018, the number of men who did not have sexual partners has doubled. Nothing even like similar has ever taken place in the past. You're being tossed around by Hansen, while the standard justification for explicit content in video games plays in the background. Instead of the most obvious one is that Tinder was released in 2012, which has fundamentally altered the dating landscape. Before Tinder came up, things were already starting to go downhill, but as soon as Tinder arrived, the problem became insurmountable. It should be no surprise that pornography and video games were still prevalent in 2012. Since the middle of 2016, there have also been adult tube sites there. Men engaged in increased sexual activity back then due to the availability of pornographic content on the internet, which lasted from 1998 through 2010. In addition to enjoying intercourse, men were purchasing sexual content, downloading it for free, and buying it. The release of first-person shooter games in the early 1990s demonstrates that video games were not to blame for the epidemic. Even at the height of its popularity a decade ago, when World of Warcraft was at its pinnacle, the game had a sexually inhibiting effect on men. Members of female chainalians participate in gaming events with male gamers and play games similar to those mentioned above. Where are those girls at this point? A dispute has been settled. More pornographic content is being aimed at men in video games. Because correlation does not imply causation, it is possible that Bumble is not the only factor at play here. Yet it is the dating app that has changed the dating landscape. The first time I saw Grindr was in 2010, and at the time, I remember thinking that it would be incredible if it were designed for straight men and women. However, since using them, the only astonishing thing is my little interest in them. The fact that I could receive a female for the package significantly dampened my enthusiasm for the deal. In addition, the ladies' quality of those applications is somewhat disheartening. Moreover, the mode of consumption is experiencing the most rapid expansion these days. More guys are using Tinder than ever, but there are more women on the site than ever. If you take a second look at this chart, you'll find that as of 2018, 28% of men between the ages of 18 and 38 have not engaged in sexual activity in 12 months. This has never occurred in the past, and I am curious as to whether or not the figures went worse in 2019. I am willing to wager that they will get worse in 2020. In addition, I investigated the fertility rates in the United States in 2018. I found South Dakota was the only state in the lower 48 with fertility rates comparable to replacement levels. I then discuss how, in my opinion, the United States of America will most likely become an insulator in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you're looking at that trend line on that graph shown in the first part of this video, you will notice that if the trend line holds, then 1/3 of all men between the ages of 18 and 30 have not had intercourse in the last year. It's not outlandish to say that it will be well over 50% in another 5 years. So all of the John Axel millennials with kids listening to this, you better be ready for a situation where you have no grandkids because 50% of matter do not have intercourse, which means populations will reduce by 50% or more. If you have children, your odds will go down even further. If you play the baby lottery, your odds of winning incels under a single mother's daughter are higher than ever. I also don't believe that Tinder is the only thing to blame for this, but women's mean demeanor. Women become increasingly nasty to men that give them attention, and they seem to be getting on these days. I don't know how or why, but that is my hunch. A while back, I had a woman contact me out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to age. Then she ghosted me right after I asked her a question. She saw it, but no response. Ironically, I had no interest in dating her, but I thought you just wanted some headshots or something, and I certainly don't want any. It's cruel and unusual behavior when you ask someone a question, get an answer, then ignore them like that. I thought she was either looking for someone to do a job or trying to catch up. I will be making the same mistake again. But women that don't realize it is that for every guy they treat like that, other women treat him the same way, and eventually he equates all women are being mean and nasty. When people tell him that the right girl is out there for him, he cuffs and gets angry. It demoralizes men from going out there and talking to other women in forming relationships. I haven't been on a date for almost 5 years. Nevertheless, I don't care anymore. But if you're an incel when all that happens, you get ghosted by women all the time. At some point, you'll stop trying altogether. You lose hope, and in video games and pornography, there is a lot more appealing. So I guess I didn't think, in that particular case, correlation is not causation. You are playing video games instead of going out with women voluntarily, making it seem like you are doing it because you have no other options. You can entertain yourself by looking at natural breasts, so you Google it rather than the one on the TV. At least the men of my generation could get there a little earlier on jugs, in contrast to the newer guys who just went on them at the screen. Because of this, it pains me to say this, but the historical development of MGTOW occurred at the ideal time, which was when women still gave us attention. We were treated horribly, and sexual activity was encouraged between us. Young men in today's society are being mistreated and not getting anything in return for the emotional anguish they are required to endure. Why bother with abusive thoughts when they aren't even interested in using you as an emotional tampon? This is the question that many people ask themselves. On the other hand, they are currently employing you in the role of an emotional punching bag. In psychology, there is a concept referred to as transference. When you transfer your feelings, in this example, a negative thing, to someone else, you are giving the love you have received from someone else. When you have been pumped violently by an excessive number of chads, they will eventually dump you like a Duroc. Then you will pass all of that poisonous masculinity onto an innocent man. They internalized it until the other blew up since there was no one else to leave, so the innocent insulin had to take the blame. Elliot Rogers styles rental. Because men aren't masochists, I've decided to stop having conversations with them altogether. That indicates that the women we're going to have will be much less emotional than the women who run away as victims, which is why I get questions from women I haven't spoken to in several years, and then they go without a trace. Perhaps many guys are forgoing the friend zone in favor of more traditional romantic relationships, because women don't have someone to talk to. My abusive side comes out whenever I find a person who pays them attention. Perhaps the men with whom they are conversing are no longer sufficient for that purpose, because we all know that if 90% of women are dating only 5 to 10% of the men out there, then you are typically on your best behavior around those guys or dump as it hurts, then we will have too many negative emotions to leave too quickly. This is because we all know that if this is the case, we will have too many negative emotions. If she cannot express the ranks until the simp orbiter is discovered, those guys would be playing video games and competing against one another rather than being harassed. After that, you'll realize there will be a problem with supply and demand. Under the Reddit post, the comment section known as the Peanut Gallery contains a lot of insightful feedback. One individual has stated that males respond to the call of duty and not the call of booty. Another guy believes that males simply withdraw from something because it has gotten too poisonous for them to continue engaging with it. Yes, certain men, but not all. Another man asserts that the poll findings are wrong. Women are engaging in hypocritical behavior, and the statistic that just 1 in 5 men is celibate is misleading. It is being insinuated that they are engaging in sexual activity, and that those who claim they are being dishonest about it. Another person claims that in 2018, 20% of males indicated they were not having sexual relations, and that figure only accounts for the men willing to admit it. And then I imagine the number is substantially higher when you factor out old married guys, and consider that most males lie about not having sexual relations with other women. He believes that the percentage of guys aged 20 to 30 who have not engaged in sexual activity in the previous year is probably closer to 80%. According to one more person, it's close to 50%, and the main reason for that is COVID. The number 50% is where I begin to agree with you. Another gentleman thinks that sooner or later, Women will be forced to understand that every man creates a loser in society, and that they will lose just as much as men will in the future. In my perspective, it is common knowledge that women are famously terrible at projecting their destinies. There are guys out there who will get married in their 30s and then be taken to the cleaners. Women will still get that SIP money but won't stay married because divorce guarantees they get the keypad. The thing to keep in regard with that survey's The Creative Graphic is that men have increased to count in women decreased set, but even still the trend is going way up. Yet another guy says the women have decided to starve men for intercourse. This is also the answer to the rise and install populations right now. Women can either control men through intercourse regularly or by starving them entirely. I will talk about the controversial topic of MGTOW. For those who don't know, MGTOW is an acronym for Men Going Their Own Way, a growing movement of men who are choosing to live their lives without women. Some people find this idea shocking and offensive, but I believe there are some very valid reasons why men should consider living in MGTOW lifestyle. Make sure to check this video out to find out more about other people's reactions to this helpful movement and why they find it bizarre.